She finally broke her silence, not with noise, not with controversy, but with calm strength shaped by decades of endurance. This was not the kind of message that needed a stage or flashing lights. It felt like something spoken quietly, the kind of truth that carries weight because it has been lived. A mother who watched her child questioned, misunderstood, criticized, and praised beyond measure did not speak to defend him, but to reveal the unseen foundation beneath an extraordinary life. Her words felt less like an interview and more like a confession of faith in resilience, discipline, and dignity. She spoke as a woman long before she was known as Elon Musk's mom. Before the headlines. Before the wealth, before the rockets and algorithms, she was simply a young woman learning how to stand upright when life leaned hard against her. She spoke of learning early that strength is not loud. Strength is waking up when you're tired, choosing courage when fear feels easier, and holding your children steady even when your own hands are shaking. She did not glamorize struggle, but she did not deny it either. She made it clear that greatness does not emerge from comfort. It is shaped in seasons where quitting would have been reasonable, but perseverance chose otherwise. Her message carried an unusual grace. There was no bitterness toward those who doubted her son, no anger toward critics. No need to correct every narrative. Instead, there was perspective. She spoke about how brilliance often looks strange before it looks successful. How children who think differently are often labeled difficult, distracted, or unrealistic. She remembered moments when teachers did not understand him, when peers mocked him, when the world seemed unkind to a mind that refused to fit neatly into boxes. She did not present herself as a perfect mother with perfect answers. She admitted fear. She admitted uncertainty. But she also admitted one unwavering choice: to believe in her child even when the evidence had not yet caught up to the vision. What made her message powerful was not fame, but humility. She reminded listeners that raising a visionary does not mean raising someone above others. It means teaching responsibility alongside imagination, discipline alongside dreams. She spoke about teaching her children to work, not wait. To contribute, not complain. To respect time, effort, and people regardless of status. She emphasized that success is never an excuse for arrogance. If anything, success increases responsibility, to think ethically, to act intentionally, and to remain grounded in service rather than ego. She spoke gently about sacrifice. Not the kind that seeks applause, but the quiet ones no one sees. Long nights, limited resources, balancing multiple jobs. Making choices that meant less for herself so her children could have more opportunity. She did not frame herself as a hero. She framed sacrifice as a normal part of love. Love that is practical. Love that shows up. Love that does not give up when outcomes are uncertain. She said something that lingered deeply, that children do not need perfect parents, they need present ones. Parents who listen more than they lecture. Parents who model integrity rather than demand obedience. Her message shifted toward a deeper truth about identity. She spoke about teaching her children that their worth was not measured by applause or achievement. That intelligence without character is dangerous. That ambition without compassion is empty. She spoke about grounding them in values that would remain steady when success arrived and when failure inevitably followed. Because both come. She reminded everyone that even the most accomplished lives are still human, still learning, still vulnerable to pride and exhaustion if not anchored in purpose. She addressed young people listening, especially those who feel unseen. She said that being different is not a curse. It is often a signal. A signal that you are meant to solve problems others ignore. To imagine futures others fear. To ask questions others are too comfortable to ask. She acknowledged that the path of the unconventional is often lonely. But she encouraged them not to dilute their curiosity to gain approval. She urged patience, not passive waiting, but disciplined preparation. She said the world does not reward talent alone. It rewards persistence, focus, and the courage to continue when validation is absent. She did not pretend that success erases pain. She acknowledged that even now, criticism continues. That public life invites judgment. That misunderstanding does not disappear with achievement. But she reframed it. She said criticism is often the echo of impact. If you are doing something that matters, resistance is inevitable. The mistake is believing every voice deserves equal weight. She encouraged discernment, listening carefully. Correcting when necessary, but never surrendering purpose to noise. Her words to parents were particularly moving. She spoke to mothers and fathers who worry they are not doing enough. She reminded them that love multiplies through consistency, through example, through patience. She said that the most powerful lessons are not spoken but observed. How you handle disappointment, how you treat others, how you manage stress, how you keep going. She said children learn courage by watching adults face fear honestly. They learn humility by watching adults admit mistakes. They learn resilience by watching adults rise after setbacks. She spoke, too, about timing. How many people want instant results? Instant recognition, instant proof. She said life rarely works that way. Growth is often invisible before it is undeniable. Seeds grow in darkness long before they break the surface. She encouraged trust in the process, especially during seasons that feel stagnant. She said that some delays are not denials but preparations. That character often matures before opportunity arrives, so that when it does not destroy the person meant to carry it. Her silence breaking felt less like revelation and more like affirmation. An affirmation that behind every headline is a human story. Behind every success is a network of unseen support. Behind every bold dream is someone who once believed quietly, persistently, without guarantee. She did not ask for admiration. She offered perspective. She offered hope, and perhaps the most powerful part of her message was this: she reminded everyone that legacy is not built only through achievement, but through the lives you influence along the way. That raising children, mentoring others, encouraging courage, and modeling integrity may never trend online, but they shape the future in ways technology alone never can. Her silence broke not to explain the past, but to illuminate the path forward. A path marked by discipline, humility, resilience, and faith in the unseen work of perseverance. A message not just from a famous mother, but from a woman who understood that the greatest power is not fame, but the quiet strength to believe, to endure, and to keep showing up when it matters most. She continued, and the room seemed to slow down as if every word needed space to land. She spoke about responsibility in a way that felt deeply personal, not theoretical. She said that when your child begins to change the world, the temptation is to protect them from criticism, to shield them from pressure. But she learned that true love does not remove weight, it teaches how to carry it. She said she never wanted her children to believe they were entitled to success or exempt from consequences. She wanted them to understand that every action creates a ripple, and the larger the influence, the larger the responsibility to act wisely. She reflected on moments when she had to step back, even when it was difficult. Moments when guidance had to give way to independence. She said that letting go is one of the hardest parts of being a parent, especially when the path ahead looks uncertain. But she believed that growth requires space. That control can suffocate potential. That trust, even when mixed with fear, is often the soil where confidence grows. She admitted there were nights she worried silently, nights she questioned whether she had done enough or said the right things. But she chose not to let fear dictate her actions. She chose faith, in her children, in the values she had instilled, and in the long arc of effort over time. She spoke about failure with remarkable honesty. She said failure was never treated as shame in their home. It was treated as information, as feedback, as a teacher that arrives without invitation but leaves wisdom behind if you listen. She said she taught her children that failing does not make you weak, refusing to learn does. She reminded listeners that even the most celebrated successes are built on layers of failed attempts the public never sees. She encouraged people not to romanticize outcomes while ignoring process. The process, she said, is where character is forged. Her voice softened when she spoke about emotional strength. She said ambition without emotional grounding can become destructive. That it is possible to achieve extraordinary things while losing peace, relationships, and self-awareness along the way. She emphasized the importance of self-reflection, humility, and remembering why you started. She said she always encouraged her children to stay curious, not just about technology or business, but about people, about emotions, about the impact of their decisions on those around them. Intelligence, she said, reaches its highest form when paired with empathy. She addressed the myth of overnight success directly. She said people love to compress stories into simple timelines because complexity makes them uncomfortable. But real growth is layered. It includes pauses, detours, setbacks, and moments of doubt that never make it into interviews or biographies. She said patience is not passive, it is active endurance. It is continuing to prepare even when recognition is delayed. She reminded listeners that comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose joy. Everyone's timeline is different. Measuring your beginning against someone else's middle will only distort your sense of progress. She spoke about resilience not as toughness, but as adaptability. The ability to bend without breaking. To rethink without losing conviction. To adjust strategy without abandoning purpose. She said the world is changing faster than ever, and rigid minds struggle in flexible times. She encouraged openness to learning at every stage of life. She said curiosity should not fade with age. And humility should not fade with success. The moment you believe you have nothing left to learn is the moment growth stops. Her message turned toward inner discipline. She spoke about habits, the unglamorous routines that shape extraordinary outcomes. Showing up on time. Doing the work when no one is watching. Reading, thinking, refining, improving daily. She said motivation is unreliable, but discipline is dependable. She taught her children not to wait for inspiration, but to build systems that support consistency. She reminded listeners that small, repeated actions often matter more than rare bursts of intensity. She addressed criticism again, but from a deeper angle. She said criticism reveals more about the critic than the creator. That people often project their fears onto those who dare to attempt something bold. She advised learning the difference between constructive feedback and destructive noise. One helps you grow. The other tries to shrink you. Wisdom lies in knowing which voices to take seriously. She encouraged emotional boundaries, especially in a world amplified by constant opinions. She shared a quiet truth about loneliness. She said leadership can be isolating. That standing at the edge of innovation often means standing apart. She acknowledged that this loneliness can be heavy, even for those surrounded by attention. She encouraged building a small circle of trusted people, those who speak truth without envy, who challenge without tearing down, who remain steady regardless of success or failure. She said fame attracts many voices, but wisdom listens to few. She spoke about money with clarity and restraint. She said money is a tool, not a measure of worth. That wealth amplifies who you already are, it does not change you. If you are generous, it gives you more ways to give. If you are reckless, it magnifies the damage. She emphasized teaching financial responsibility early, not as obsession, but as stewardship. Understanding value, effort, and impact. She said the goal was never excess, but effectiveness. Her message to women carried particular strength. She spoke about navigating a world that often underestimates, interrupts, or overlooks. She said confidence does not need permission. That competence speaks even when voices try to silence it. She encouraged women to trust their instincts, to keep learning, to take up space without apology. She said strength and grace are not opposites, they coexist. And leadership does not require losing softness, it requires directing it with intention. She reminded everyone listening that success is not a finish line. There is no moment where life stops asking things of you. Growth continues, challenges evolve, responsibility deepens. She said fulfillment comes not from arrival, but from alignment, when your actions reflect your values, and your work reflects your purpose. She encouraged people to define success for themselves rather than inheriting definitions that leave them empty. Her words carried a sense of peace, as if she had made peace with uncertainty itself. She said control is an illusion. That life will surprise you no matter how carefully you plan. But preparation, integrity, and resilience create stability even in unpredictability. She encouraged faith, not necessarily in outcomes, but in effort. In showing up honestly. In doing your best with what you have, where you are. As she spoke, it became clear that her silence had not been emptiness. It had been fullness waiting for the right moment. Her message was not crafted for headlines, but for hearts. Not to elevate a name, but to elevate perspective. She did not speak as a celebrity mother, but as a woman who had lived, learned, fallen, risen, and chosen to share wisdom rather than defend legacy. And the deeper she spoke, the clearer it became. This was not just about Elon Musk. It was about every person raising a dream, nurturing potential, or carrying a vision others cannot yet see. It was about believing before proof arrives. About enduring when applause is absent. About choosing values that outlast trends. She closed her message with a kind of quiet certainty, the kind that only comes from having walked through uncertainty without losing oneself. There was no dramatic ending, no call for applause. Instead, there was a sense of completion, as if she had said exactly what needed to be said, and nothing more. She reminded everyone that life does not ask us to be extraordinary all at once. It asks us to be faithful in ordinary moments. To choose integrity when shortcuts appear. To choose patience when progress feels slow. To choose courage when fear offers comfort. She spoke about legacy one last time, but not in terms of monuments or recognition. She said legacy lives in conversations. In habits passed down, in the way children learn to face the world because of how they were loved. She said if her children achieved great things, that was meaningful, but if they remained kind, thoughtful, and responsible human beings, that mattered even more. Achievement, she said, is fragile without character. Character endures even when achievements fade. She addressed the younger generation directly, almost like a blessing. She said the world you are inheriting is complex, fast, and often overwhelming. But complexity is not an excuse for helplessness. She encouraged them to develop depth in a culture that rewards speed. To think critically in a world flooded with opinions. To build skills that cannot be easily replaced: judgment, creativity, empathy, discipline. She reminded them that technology is powerful, but values are what guide power toward good or harm. She spoke gently about fear. Not as an enemy, but as a signal. Fear often appears at the edge of growth, she said. The mistake is allowing it to decide for you. She encouraged people to listen to fear, learn from it, and then move forward anyway. Courage, she said, is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that something else matters more. Her words about love were simple but deep. She said love is not proven through control, but through trust. Not through perfection, but through presence. She said the greatest gift you can give another person is belief that they can grow, learn, and become more than they are today. She said many people fail not because they lack talent, but because they were never truly believed in. And when belief is given consistently, it can change the trajectory of a life. She reflected briefly on her own journey, not to draw attention, but to normalize perseverance. She said there were times she felt invisible, times her efforts went unnoticed, times she wondered if her sacrifices mattered. But she learned that meaning is not always immediate. Some seeds take years to show their fruit. She encouraged patience with oneself, especially in seasons of obscurity. She said obscurity is not failure, it is often preparation. She returned to the idea of balance, not as a perfect equation, but as a continual adjustment. She said life pulls in many directions, and learning when to push and when to pause is a skill developed over time. She encouraged rest without guilt, ambition without obsession, and success without losing one's soul. She said a life well lived includes margins, space to reflect, to reconnect, to breathe. Her final thought centered on hope. Not a shallow optimism, but a grounded hope rooted in effort and responsibility. She said hope grows when people choose to act with integrity even when outcomes are uncertain. When they invest in others without immediate return. When they keep learning, keep adapting, keep showing up. She said the future is shaped not only by visionaries, but by those who quietly support, teach, and believe behind the scenes. As her message came to an end, it felt less like a conclusion and more like a passing of wisdom, something meant to be carried forward, not simply admired. She did not position herself above anyone. She stood beside them, offering what she had learned through years of living fully, imperfectly, and intentionally. Her silence had not been weakness. It had been wisdom waiting for the right moment to speak. And when she finally broke it, she did not speak to defend a name or explain a life. She spoke to remind the world of something easily forgotten, that behind every bold dream is quiet endurance, behind every breakthrough is patient belief. And behind every future shaped for the better is someone who chose to keep going when it would have been easier to stop. And with that, she stepped back, not into silence again, but into the quiet confidence of knowing that what truly matters does not need constant explanation.